Some of them call it ganja.
Marijuana, cannabis, grass, pot. Different names for the same plant. Cannabis sativa, or hemp. For 50 years, hemp has been categorized as an illicit drug, but it was once one of the world's largest agricultural crops. Last century, hemp fibre was a major source of paper, cloth and rope. The seed provided food and oil for lighting. The flowering tops were an important source of medicine. Today, a new strain of hemp with no drug content has the potential to reinstate cannabis in mainstream agriculture. It could help reverse the planet's environmental degradation. But hemp, even the non-drug variety, remains illegal throughout most of the world.
Discovered in Florida with marijuana plants scattered over a
Mudgee has become Australia's new marijuana capital.
The biggest marijuana crop was discovered after a tip-off.
$150 million worth of cannabis.
Burning the crop,
destroying the plants and spraying to prevent regrowth.
This is the story of hemp's renaissance and the untold history of marijuana. How did it become demonized? Has the drug hysteria blinded us to the myriad uses of this plant? In our zeal to prohibit cannabis, are we denying ourselves a legitimate billion-dollar crop?
Cannabis has not been responsible for a single drug death in Australia or in the world as far as we're informed. Alcohol is responsible for a lot of deaths in this country, both from the acute effects of intoxication and the longer effects of toxicity. Why they're treated so very differently from being promoted in the electronic media and all the rest to being demonised and prohibited. People have to ask that question themselves.
Dr. Andrew Catalaris is a registrar in forensic medicine, but his part-time crusade has been to restore the status of a plant the world has been trying to eradicate for most of this century.
It's entirely hypocritical that cannabis is not available to treat a multitude of human problems, such as the wasting disease associated with HIV. Hemp drugs should be available to all those who may benefit and who need them.
There's thousands of acres in depressed rural areas just crying out for a high value-added crop, and I think hemp is the ideal crop. I really do think it could rejuvenate rural Australia and Australia as a whole.
Andrew's conviction is shared by a number of farmers who are looking seriously at the viability of growing hemp as an alternative crop to cotton.
We think that's a good opportunity to introduce rural employment and export dollars as well.
Yeah, well, the phobia and inhibitions that people have got about marijuana can be put aside, the recognition that this is not a drug-related crop. Once it achieves respectability, it'll be all systems go, I'm sure.
The drug content of hemp is found only in the leaves and flowering heads. Much work has been done in Europe to breed varieties with very low levels of the psychoactive chemical tetrahydrocannabinol, or THC. It's these strains which are forging hemp's return into mainstream agriculture. These plants might look like other cannabis plants, but you could smoke an entire field and get nothing more than a headache. But the law does not differentiate between varieties, and even non-drug strains are still prohibited, despite their huge industrial potential.
The usefulness of hemp comes from the long, strong fibre which is found on the outside of the plant. It's the strongest of all natural fibres, and that's what's used for the fabric. It's also used for the more traditional uses of ropes and twines, and it can be used in the manufacture of best quality paper. The short fibre in the inside of the plant, the hurd, is composed of about 77% cellulose, and it can be used in the production of alcoholic fuels, such as ethanol, to run our vehicles in a non-polluting way. It can be used as a base for biodegradable plastics, such as cellophane and other more recent biodegradable plastic based on cellulose. It's an extremely useful plant.
Hemp has served mankind for over 12,000 years and was once one of the world's most traded commodities. In the early American colony, hemp was such an important crop, farmers were directed to grow the plant. It was legal tender and could be used to pay taxes. In England, Queen Victoria took cannabis extract to relieve her premenstrual tension. For centuries, the canvas sails and rigging of the world's ships were made from hemp. Van Gogh, like most artists, painted on hemp canvas. The original Levi jeans were made from hemp, even the US flag. Today, in the state of Tasmania, Patsy Harmsen and her husband Fritz are working to revive hemp's forgotten uses. Their Hemp for Paper Consortium is one of the few organizations in the world legally permitted to grow cannabis.
The way that we're doing things is very primitive and tailored purely to a trial crop. People watching us do this would just probably throw up their hands in horror. And in fact, it is about as low-tech and close to nature and human foibles as you could get.
Patsy's research crop is the only legal cannabis under cultivation in Australia. Despite being a non-drug variety, the Harmsens have been restricted to a plot little larger than a tennis court. Although Patsy's made great progress, her ambitions for hemp as a major source of paper have been hindered by a nervous state government.
I've been very frustrated with the delays and the fact that it's tied us up and prevented us from going ahead at the pace that we think is needed, because we think the sooner we start reducing the pressure on the forests, the better. We have small business interest, we have big business interest. Even though it's not a firm commitment, there is certainly a call on the part of big industry for the research to continue. So it is very surprising that the government and the officials concerned saw fit to make it almost impossible for us to go ahead this time.
While Patsy and Fritz have been battling bureaucratic obstacles in Australia, hemp growers in the UK have been enjoying the full support of the British Home Office. After just one research crop, a commercial harvest totaling 1,500 acres of a non-drug variety was licensed to some 30 growers in the south of England. The first legal cannabis to be grown in the British Isles for almost 50 years. The story started here at Harlow Agricultural Merchants, where Ian Lowe is managing director.